can turn around and have discussions about this from a little stronger knowledge base with more reasonable people. But at best, the best I would hope for is that if I was talking to a heavily religious person, then I would eventually get them to at least accept some change of thinking about logic or science, small changes. What would you say about that?
That sounds like good advice, but it's different from the advice I would use. What we don't know about Spencer is whether he himself was raised Mormon.
Right.
I would guess probably the answer is yes. And if that's the case, he's more in my boat. I mean, when I talk to my religious relatives, I already know, I mean, I was raised with the beliefs that they have. I know what they are. So I don't really have room for that self-education angle. And it's more like, for me, it's been just, you need to demand that you get respect, you know, not more respect than anybody else in the family, but equal respect to anyone else in the family. And then if you can achieve that, then you pretty much just go along with your relationship, and eventually over time, if your relative is paying attention, they start to notice that you're not you don't fit the cartoon characterization of atheists that they tend to get from their religion, and that will help your relationship. That's all I got for you, though.
That's a good point. So, I mean, your approach would not be so much to make him stop being a Mormon, but to
Spencer didn't say convert. I mean, if you want to convert, I wouldn't... in my experience, I mean, I've just stayed away from trying to convert my relatives because it's just too painful, right? And honestly, I mean, most of my interacting with theists is on this show, where we also don't really make it our business to convert people. But the arguments are more, I don't know, similar to that here on the show. With my relatives, though, I never really went there. I don't try to talk them out of the stuff that they believe. I think that if they realize that if you can be an example of how what they're told in their religion is false by not fitting the stereotype that they have been told to expect, then that's a little bit of headway you can make.
In my opinion, there's a great art to trying to read the person that you're talking to and understand who your audience is, and you know, and what they're thinking, and what your objectives are in terms of talking to them. And if the idea is just to talk to somebody and try to get their respect and try to get them to admit that just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you're not still the brother that they loved and respected in the past, then I would say, that is certainly feasible. And one of the things that I try to do in a conversation is try to sort of winnow down the irrelevant stuff, like, you know, whether I'm going to heaven or hell is not necessarily relevant to the detail of trying to be taken seriously by the religious person.
But it is a big deal on the question of respect.
True.
Right? Because, and that's, if you're dealing with family members who love you, and they're being told that because you've become an atheist, therefore you're going to be tortured forever. I mean,
sure,
that is an issue for them that you might want to ask them to confront.
Right. Yeah, so basically narrow down the topic to whatever is the biggest concern for them, or what is the closest point of approach where you guys have some essential disagreement that needs to be talked about. It's not necessarily going to be there's a God or there's no God, or, you know, Moroni showed Joseph Smith these golden tablets or not, because those are, you know, when you come down to it, those are side issues to the bigger, meatier issues that might be in play also.
Right. How much time we got left? Do you want to go into this thing that I brought?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We frequently get email, and it's always enjoyable. And this letter that I'm going to read bits of has been answered, but I thought that it was a good topic to bring up on the show. And I don't know whether this person would mind being identified, so I won't. But they write, he says, the default position is to reject a claim until there is sufficient evidence. So if you say, this God exists, you have to prove it exists. I think that's correct, that it should be like that. But is it really fair in this case? I mean, the God that is believed in is invisible and untouchable, and you can only be sure that it exists or not after you die. What would you do if you were a God that rewards gullibility? I'm not sure what he means by that. He says it's kind of hard to prove something like that. So his point is it fair to hold to a standard of, refraining from belief until the thing is proved when you're dealing with things that are hard to prove?
I know what he means by a God who rewards gullibility.
What does he mean?
Bill Hicks has a routine where he talks about Satan tempting people by hiding fossils. Or, no, God, actually.
Right.
That's just God trying to tempt you. And, imagine it's a trickster God. Ha, 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 let's see, people believe in me now.
So you're saying...
But he rewards people for rejecting the evidence and believing on faith instead.
Okay. So that's just more, back on this idea that some things are hard to prove. So is it fair to hold to a standard of refraining from belief in such things until they are proved? Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously it is. What is the alternative? I mean, what are we supposed to to lower our standards of evidence when things are harder to prove? Isn't that exactly backward?
Yes.
I'm asking you, because we're the only people who can talk about this.
I think it's exactly backwards.
Now, I see where he's coming from, right? It's like, this guy wants me to believe this thing, and he can't prove it, and I really want to help him out. Mm-hmm. But that really doesn't enter into it. What matters is still whether you can prove the thing or not. I thought of this analogy, right? Is it fair that gold is really valuable and dirt isn't? Well, no, it's not fair, right? I mean, some people can pick up a rock and it's gold and they just made $1,000, and other people most people reach down and pick up a clump of dirt and they've got a clump of dirt, right?
Yeah,
it's not fair. It's not fair. But the reason why the gold is more valuable is because it is more rare. And my point is, knowledge that is harder to come by, but still true and accurate, is more valuable. So yeah, you damn well hold to your standard of not refraining from belief until it's proved. But the kinds of things that are hard to prove are the more astonishing, amazing, valuable, impressive things.
Yeah.
Right? If I I'm asking people to believe that there's a cup on this piece of paper. Now the camera's not on it, but I have put my water cup on my piece of paper, right? If I'm asking people to believe that, well, there, you can look at it, it's proved, right?
It's evidenced.
If you really want, you can come over and pick it up and check it out, right, yourself. Easy, right? How much is that piece of information worth? Not much.
Not very much.
Right? But I ask you to believe that there is an invisible entity that existed before the universe and created the universe and did all this stuff, right, and has all these attitudes about things. I mean, that's a much bigger deal. If I could prove that, that would be worth a lot. That would have huge impacts on everything that we think.
And it's maybe not fair that it's hard to prove that.
But it is fair because of how important that piece of knowledge would be if you could prove it.
Right.
Right?
I have actually another example that I'd like to bring up, because quack psychics are really skilled at coming up with ad hoc explanations for why their things aren't testable. They'll say, like, oh, it was all the negative energy in the room that prevented me from actually talking to the dead and learning things when I was put on the spot. So I say, Suppose we actually lived in a universe where there were spirits of the dead all around us all the time, but you
Right.
still couldn't prove it. So you have some people who are genuinely talking to the dead and learning valuable things. Even in that universe, I guarantee you there would be quacks who have no special powers, but claim that their special powers to talk to the dead work for personal gain.
Right, of
Because
course there
they
would be.
see these real psychics have a good thing going. They can, they can get a lot of money being a medium. So they're like, I want in on this action, and all I have to do is make stuff up because it's untestable.
Right, and yeah, that, to sort of bring that to the analogy that I was making with gold, right? I mean, claiming that you have knowledge of something that is really, really, really hard to prove is something, on a certain level, something like claiming that you have a whole bunch of gold that you can't produce.
Right.
And then expecting people to sell you things on credit based on this gold that you have that you can't produce and can't prove that you have.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, bottom line with the skeptic thing is that even if it was true that the ghosts were talking to some select people, it would still be useless given the fact that these scammers exist. If you couldn't show that you're one of the real ones and
Right.
not the scammers.
Right. That's
So
exactly right.
so even if it's true, you still need a good test.
Yeah, but if there were real psychics talking to real ghosts, you could prove it.
You could,
Because
and
those
that's the
ghosts would
point.
know stuff that only they would know, and you'd be able to get that information.
Right,
And not
but that's
just,
not the case
just,
with the skeptics we have here in this world. They suck at that.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right. Shall
We
we?
only have a couple minutes left, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to do some triage here, so I'm going to Jeff in Edmonton, and you're probably going to be the last caller.
No.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Hello?
Talk.
Yeah. Yes, you're on.
Hello?
Yes. Talk.
Hi.
We're having trouble with the phones today.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just trying to, yeah. Okay, well, thanks a lot, guys. Just, just to sort of, I've been watching this show for a while. Well, I discovered it through YouTube, and mostly through clips. Really enjoy the show. And, really appreciate the efforts you guys have been making as far as trying to enlighten people is concerned, especially where you guys are at. There's a reason I was calling because, I came across this clip from the September 19th show of last year, where this guy named Troy, who was also from Edmonton, tried to talk about or tried to argue in favor of intelligent design. And I think, remember, Russell, you were one of the hosts
Yeah, that's
in
right.
that episode, along with Martin. And, basically his argument was that, something couldn't come from nothing. Anyway, so I mean, the reason, I'd like to think that, the number of people or the amount of ignorance that we've got in Canada was less than from what I've seen, based on the callers I've listened to watching clips of this show. But it brought to mind because one of the big issues, of course, is education. I mean, they can believe people. If people want to be religious, that's fine. But, when they try to, start imposing their beliefs on others via education, then, I, like a lot of other atheists, have a problem with that. And there was a bill passed, I think it was only last year in this province, that basically allowed, it allows parents to pull their children out of classes that are teaching topics that they deem to be inappropriate, including evolution and homosexuality. And I wasn't too impressed with that because I was thinking, people like Troy are exactly the kind of people that could have benefited.
I'm really
from
sorry.
such causes.
We'd like to talk about this more, but we are flat out of time. And don't worry, I don't consider Troy to be representative of Canada in general. That's our show. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And don't forget to come to El Arroyo in about half an hour. Thanks, Jeff, for being on.
Thanks, Russell. This was fun.
Yeah, always. See you later.
Bye, folks.